Hi, today we're going to talk about the fundraising I've recently been doing for the Inter-Pacific Spearfishing competition. Well, more specifically for the Australian team in the Inter-Pacific Spearfishing competition. You might be asking yourself why I'm doing this from the bath. Well, simply put, if there's one thing that I have learned from the modern TikTok generation, is that having your breasts out whilst talking on the internet seems to improve viewer retention by up to 7 million%. So if you can't beat them, join them. So where to begin? I suppose the right place to begin would be to thank everybody who has so far contributed to the fundraising. So far, we're about 6 months out from the competition now, and we've raised a little over $6,000, which should certainly go a long way towards the goal of trying to get about $20,000 in order to support the 8 or 9 person team that we intend to send to the Inter-Pacifics in New Zealand. It is tremendously appreciated. Every cent goes a massively long way in helping the team to get there and to try and perform their best. And even though representing one's country in a sport they love is a fantastic honour, the price tag that is attached to it can actually make it very difficult for some of our best competitors in order to be able to attend. So hopefully, by doing this fundraising, we can send the best possible team to New Zealand and really give it our best to beat the New Zealanders on their home turf. Because, I don't know about you, but I think it's the Australian way to just really want to beat New Zealand at things. It doesn't really matter the sport, but you just really want to beat them. So I guess the next thing would be to actually talk about the competitions themselves and give people a little bit of a background, a bit of information, so they understand how the competition works and why I personally particularly enjoy this format of competition. The first reason, and what I think is probably the biggest part that makes it such a good competition, is that it's a team's event. You're not just out there for yourself. It's more like when you actually go spearfishing. It's you and your mate diving together as a pair, that pair then makes up an overall set of 2 pairs, making a 4-person team. Now this team is working together. You share your information, you share your hunting techniques, you pretty much do a masterclass between the 4 of you, with everyone teaching everyone else how they go about getting fish. Now on top of that 4-person team is the manager, who also acts as the reserve most of the time. Now the manager's job is to make it so that the divers can focus exclusively on diving the competition. So the manager is there to organise and arrange and just make sure that the divers have the time and energy to focus purely on how, where, when and what fish they're going to find. Then on the competition days, the manager's job is to stay in the boat, and his role in the boat is to manage the catch, essentially, and then communicate what is being caught and what isn't being caught between the 2 teams, which usually will split up and move in different areas to go and chase different bits of the reef. This maximising their chances of getting a larger array, a larger variety of fish. Now, as for how the competition works itself, this is a swimming competition, meaning that you don't have a GPS. It's actually illegal to have a GPS. The most you have for your ability to then go and refine spots is a compass and landmarks, which really makes it go back to old school proper hunting techniques, as well as needing to have that dive fitness there as you are swimming for the entire time that the comp takes place. You don't get to stop. The competition zones usually have a 5-kilometre radius or a 5-kilometre maximum area. This is just for safety, to make it easier for the safety boats that are there to keep track of all the competitors in the water, just in case something goes awry. Which means that you can swim a very, very, very long way, particularly if you're trying to cover different areas within that zone. The way they start and the way they finish is there will be a specific starting point set up with a buoy, usually a very large buoy, sometimes a little buoy, or sometimes they use a boat. But whatever it is, it's something that floats and stays in a very specific position. Now, every competitor, 1 person I should say, out of each team, has to have their hand on said buoy. Then, once the starting whistle or blower or whatever horn goes to let you know to start, you start swimming. Then it is a race to get to the better spots. To know the better spots, you as a team have usually spent the last 6 or 7 days diving those competition zones and looking for where the fish are and where the fish aren't, and just trying to get an idea. The more time you can spend in the water before the competition to actually learn that area and then remember landmarks and compass bearings and just different bits of structure on the bottom that can help you navigate to the next spot really does come in handy, and can be difficult at times, particularly if there's poor weather or you can't actually get out to those zones. But assuming you've been lucky enough to be able to get some time in the water to know roughly where to go, you then have to race the other teams to get there. because we all know that they will have been doing the same thing for the previous week, which can make it very interesting, particularly against some of the teams who have some phenomenal swimmers that can go very, 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 very fast for a very long time. You can certainly see now where the dive fitness comes into play. You are covering large areas, swimming very hard and very fast to get to where you want to be, have to recuperate, do your dive, attain your fish, get back up, put your fish in the usually boat floats that you were towing, and then take off again to get to the next spot before the other competitors. This is then rinsed and repeated for 6 hours. You have 6 hours in order to do this. Once you get to the end of that 6 hours, you have to be back at that same buoy or boat or float that you started at with both of your team's hands on that buoy, marking out to the organizer that you have returned. For every amount of time you are late, you get penalized points. So you have to be there. However, if you get back too early, you're going to be losing points as well because you have missed out on time getting to shoot fish. So it can really come down to a lot of planning and a lot of thinking and a lot of hoping that you're going to be able to swim those distances in the times that is required. Now, once you get back to that buoy, you're then allowed to go back into your boat. Up until that point, if you get in the boat, you lose a lot of points or you're disqualified. So it's just constant swimming. Now, once you're back in the boat, you have to manage your catch. And by that, I mean go through and organize the fish that you are then going to present at the weigh-in. Now, I should say, if I did forget earlier, I do apologize, that there is a very specific list of fish that you have to catch in these ones. You can't just go willy-nilly and shoot anything you find. The organizers of each competition select fish from that area that they think will be more difficult to get or more prized to get, and have those as a specific list for what you're looking for. Which means that fish identification skills then become incredibly important as well, as if you're not from that area, you have to study those fish before you go. We usually use some spreadsheets and graphs and tables and lots of things like that we prepare, and I will put some in the video so you can have a look. Because it's a specific list of fish, to get more points, you need to get more of the fish from that list, and the more fish from that list you can get, the better. There is a specific set number of how many of each of those fish you can get. I believe it is 1 per competitor. Then once you get back, you have the weigh-in. Some weigh-ins work off a minimum weight. Last year's competition worked off a minimum length. But either way, it's the same thing. You take your fish and you present them, and then they are checked by the other team managers to make sure that they are legal size and that they are the specific fish that are asked on the list, and then they get weighed. And you get a certain amount of points per fish and then a certain amount of points per weight of said fish. This is why it's very important, and it comes down to that teamwork, going in different areas and looking for different species. If some person is, let's say, stronger in the deeper ground, they will go and hunt the deeper rocks for a specific species that may only be found there. Whereas another team will then go, okay, if you're better at that, I'll go up into the shallows, get the different fish that are in the shallows, and then work my way out. So that way you're covering as much ground as possible between both sets of pairs. And then the manager, it's very important because they have to communicate between both of those sets. If they're not communicating correctly, it can be very detrimental because you need to get and find as many of the very specific fish that are on that list in order to do well in the competition. That's part of what makes this competition really good, is the fact that it doesn't matter how good you are individually. You could be the best. But what you need to do well at this competition is to have 5 good divers working really well as one coherent unit. And that's what spearfishing is all about. You're not just out there on your own. You're meant to be out there with your mates, having a dive and getting fish as a team. And I think that's probably one of my favorite parts about the Indo-Pacific spearfishing competition is the teamwork that is involved in it. It's spectacular. And it's what all competitions, I think personally, should be like. It should be about a group of you doing well and not just an individual. And then once all the fish are weighed and the task scores are tallied, you go out and do it for a second day usually. Sometimes this doesn't happen due to weather or safety concerns or things like that. And then the scores from the 2 days are put together and a winner is decided depending on how their team has done as a unit. It is a fierce competition. There are some incredible competitors that come from these other nations such as Tahiti, New Caledonia, Hawaii, Guam, New Zealand. They are fantastic competitors. And the amount that you learn from them while you're there, even just getting to watch them out of the corner of your eye while you're diving is phenomenal. Then there is a presentation dinner usually, where you hand trophies out to the winners, and normally each country will give their shirts to other countries and exchange gifts and those kind of things, which is just fantastic. And then you all sit down and have a chat and talk about how you hunt fish where you're from and how they hunt fish where they're from, and you learn a phenomenal amount of information. Then, alas, it is time to get on a big metal plane and usually fly back home and hopefully do well enough in the local competitions to go again the next year. Well, I hope my sexy ramblings in the tub have taught you or given you a little bit of an insight as to why I'm doing the fundraising and what I'm doing the fundraising for. And once I get more information about who's in the team and those kind of things, I'll make you more videos. If you prefer it in the bathtub, let me know. I can do them here again. Otherwise, I can find other locations to do them that aren't quite as sultry and wonderful. But hey, I'm trying out to be a new TikTok star. No, shouldn't do that. You liked it, it's fine. Anyway, I'll talk to you all next time. And again, a massive thank you to anyone who has contributed. It is really, really, really appreciated. And I will do my very best to bring you updates over the next 6 months until the event at the start of March. Until then, I bid you adieu.